Hey, my lovely black parfaits. It is your official general minion, the Black Parfait, and welcome again to another episode of the Black Parfait. I brought my spoon. I hope you brought yours. So let's just dive right in because you know I am not very patient. First of all, to shout out this episode's black ass, black owned business, I have to shout out Kesha's Kingdom. She has a company where she sells clothing, where you can actually have artwork embossed on the clothing. She also sells these amazing bags. Unfortunately, I left mine. I don't have it with me. But she sells these amazing over-the-shoulder canvas bags with really great designs on them. She's also an artist, so a lot of them are her own designs. But she has ones with tarot cards on them. She also has, these bags that like strap to your leg, almost gun holster like, but not for guns, for like your wallet and stuff, that are really, really cool. So they keep your hands free, and also you can get designs on those. She sells a lot of stuff with really cool artwork on them. And I have a pair of pants that are the most comfy pants on the entire planet, and I love them, and she's really cool, and her mom is really cool. So Kesha's Kingdom, located here in Western PA in Pittsburgh area, does not actually have a brick and mortar store, but I will link to her Facebook, her Instagram, and her Etsy store in the description box below, because she's super cool and I like her stuff. So now for our topic of the day. So, as you know, I have my notes, and this topic is a little bit close to home for me because it is something I have personal experience with. I would like to just take some time to talk about interreligious relationships. Now, usually when we hear about interreligious relationships, it's, a Christian who marries a Muslim, or a Jew who marries an atheist, or, what we hear about are mostly the, major organized religions, or atheists, or Satanists, if people want to get super sensational, even though Satanists are awesome people. But I want to talk about when you are in these kinds of relationships, when there's not such a common understanding of what those what these alternate religions, what these non-mainstream religions are like, when that spiritual path is a little bit more fluid and you're with someone who is kind of also on a fluid spiritual path, what that can look like, what that can do for just your relationship, what it can do for a polycule, what it can do for, power exchange and kink and things like that. So I just kind of want to explore that because I am in one myself. As I have stated previously, I consider myself an Afro-spiritualist. I have not been indoctrinated into, it's not actually, it's just the word that came into my mind, but I more clearly mean initiated into. I have not been initiated into any kind of practice. I do not follow any particular path. The only mainstay Afro-spiritual practice I have is ancestor veneration, and I just study a lot, and I look at a lot of stuff, and I read a lot of stuff. However, my butch, my daddy, my partner, is an more Celtic leaning, eclectic pagan. It just does shit when he feels like doing shit, and like that's just it. He has these beliefs, and then when he feels the need, he'll just pull shit out of everywhere and do spells, and then it's like, cool. So those are very different kind of frameworks. I'm lucky in that I have a partner who isn't very observant. He doesn't have a lot of like cornerstone bedrock practices. He was raised in a family of recovering Catholics, Irish. and hasn't really found a path that works for him a lot. So he's just kind of all over the place. And for me, since I am still exploring, I haven't been initiated into a particular path. I'm just kind of taking the things that feel right and working with them. We find it easier to kind of blend into one spiritual household. And I'd like to talk mainly about how we do that and how you can do that, and how people in power exchanges like we are can also do that. One of the things that's really important is kind of both the blending and the divergent. When it comes to blending the practices in your relationship, it helps to have, an overhead view of what your relationship with spirituality looks like, as well as theirs, and then find the things that are common and be willing to kind of do those together, or make them also household activities. I pray before I eat. I pray to my ancestors before I eat. My partner just happens to not do that, but it's a very common practice across many spiritual paths. So that's one thing that can be very easily incorporated into kind of a household, couple, polycule kind of practice. Ancestral veneration is also something that tends to span spiritual paths. So that's another thing that, what does your ancestral veneration look like? What does your ancestral veneration look like? How can we make this a household, couple, polycule kind of thing that we all take part in? So finding those common threads in spiritual practice can help make the fact that you are on divergent spiritual paths not seem like something that can cause friction in your household, because you're like, you have these things, I have these things, we can do these things together, and it doesn't have to kind of pull me off my spiritual path. Then there's those things that are divergent. It's also very important that you keep the identity of your own spiritual path. That means just like in any kind of relationship, couple, polycule, you want to have time to pursue your own interests. This still holds true in spiritual practice. So like I said, I pray before I eat. My partner does not, even though it's something that we don't share. There are times when I'm hungry and I forget, and he'll just stop me and go, hey, you need to say your grace before you eat. So it's that respect for my spiritual path, and respect for the fact that he's going to start eating first, and I'm going to say my grace before I start eating. Like, respect for that divergency in spiritual paths can also be a great way to show support for the fact that your partner does not share the same path as you, and to help solidify your respect for their spiritual identity outside of a household, a polycule, a couple, a relationship spiritual identity. So those blending and those divergence in fairly equal measure can really help both of you maintain your spiritual path while sharing a life together. And I say both, but this can be thruples, it can be a polycule if you are, living and sharing space together. These are ways that both sharing and keeping your stuff separate can help make the entire relationship stronger. As far as things like power exchange and kink, they're all levels to that. To start with something that's much more common and much simpler. One of the things that sometimes doesn't get thought about when it comes to negotiating, say, a placing at a party somewhere, it's the awareness of various spiritual regalia that can interfere in a scene and make a scene a little bit different. So if you are on a spiritual path that's not very common, then consider that when you're negotiating. Don't feel like if you are a bottom and you want to play with someone who doesn't seem to follow your same spiritual path, that you have to take off your elekes to play with them. If you are someone that wears your elekes close to your body all the time, don't feel like you have to compromise that that kind of spiritual connection in order to play. If the person you want to play with does not respect that spiritual connection, you don't want to play with them because they're an asshole. So, just to be very clear, if you are someone who wears, full, hijab, niqab, some kind of religious garment, a yarmulke, any kind of religious garment, and you don't feel that like you want to take that off during play, it is perfectly okay to say, I'm keeping this on. We're just going to have to work around it. And that goes just as much for the top as it does for the bottom. If you are a top that wears waist beads and you're going to have to swing a flogger, and you know that you're okay with that, if your bottom has a problem with you wearing waist beads for whatever reason, don't play with that. Walk away. So, and that's just for things like negotiating play with people you pick up play with people you may not know. This gets into a deeper conversation, a relationship conversation when it comes to power exchange. If you have a spiritual practice that is very important to you, that is sacred to you, that is a part of your life and your everyday identity, please talk about that with any potential partner, any potential person you're going to enter a power exchange with. It is vital that these things are discussed in great detail so that you know if you are compatible in a life situation, because that's what these relationships are. They are life situations. If you see yourself in a long-term power exchange with someone of the same faith or of the same spiritual path as you need to talk about that early, because you are potentially talking about someone converting to your spiritual path, no matter what path that is. You need to talk about that from the jump. That is not something you spring on somebody like a year in. You done fucked up. Just saying it plainly. If this is something somebody's only learning a year into the relationship, when they are like finally getting, or whenever they finally get a collar, you're like, okay, now you're going to convert to, Santeria or Candomblé or Voodoo. No. You done fucked up. No. This also goes for joining a house. This can go for any kind of power exchange structure. In short, being in a power exchange, being in a relationship with someone who is, or with a few someones who are of a different spiritual path, can work. Someone who is of no spiritual path, someone who's atheist, these things can work. Like most relationships, they require communication, consent, and respect. But they can work, even when they're vastly different, even when they're wildly different. But you have to be honest about how important spirituality, religion, practice, ritual, prayer, observance, what have you. You have to be honest about how much that means to you. Even if it's, I really feel strongly about my elekes and I really feel strongly about feast days, but I don't care about nothing else. That's fine. But whoever you're interacting with deserves to know that. So that, if they break your elekes when they're swinging that whip, that you don't just go the fuck off. Or at least they'll know. They'll know. They're going to catch some shit. So, I'm just saying. Interreligious relationships are a great thing. They're a beautiful thing. But please, date responsibly. Be in power exchanges responsibly. Build polycules responsibly. Because this shit gets deep. Okay? So, if you've ever been in an interreligious relationship, boy, that other one is a completely different topic. If you've ever been in an interreligious relationship. If you've ever dated someone who's outside of your spiritual path or discovered a spiritual path while you were in a relationship, how did that go for you? What was that like? Let me know in the comments. I want to know, would you ever consider dating someone of a different religious faith? If you are on a more mainstream religious path, have you ever thought about dating someone or being in a power exchange with someone or being in a polycule with someone who isn't? And not just atheist, but is practitioner of Voodoo, a practitioner of Baha'i, a practitioner of some other religion that may not be as well known. Let me know. I'm curious. I want to hear from you. So that's it for today. Join us next time here in the Black Parfait. And don't forget to bring your spoon.